So guys, I am a Warframe player, and I've never played Destiny 1 or 2 while it was in Activision's hands. But since the game has went free to play with New Light, I guess I really don't have any excuse not to try it out. And I was of course looking for video topics that I could possibly do, and I saw where not that many Warframe YouTubers were talking about it. Well, I should say that they were more poking it with a 10-foot long pole because, well, whenever someone mentions Destiny, a bunch of Warframe players loves to get salty. So I thought, what the heck, I might as well play the game and make it my first review video. Now, I do plan on trying to make this as fair as possible. Seeing that I'm a Warframe player, there might be a little bias against it. So I devised a scoring system to help with that. And before I get into explaining that system, let me give a big thanks to everyone that's already subscribed to the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. Also, I got the Discord up, so go over there, check it out, give me some feedback. Also, you can give me some feedback over at Twitter as well to let me know what games you want me to cover. And to everyone that hasn't subscribed yet, let me ask that you consider, definitely if you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it. And since I am a small channel, if you subscribe now, you'll also be helping shape the future of the channel as well as the content that I put out. And speaking of content, I do have a lot of that stuff planned out, but I am trying to figure out a good release schedule as well as ways that I can possibly improve the channel. So if it's a bit irregular or I post a video at random times, you know what's up. And with all that said and done, let's get right into the video, shall we? Okay, so to go over how I'm going to be reviewing games, it's simple. I'll come up with all the categories that I find relevant or important to the game at hand or to the genre, and I'll judge each one of them and assign a score to the maximum of 5. If a category is particularly important or has significant weight, I will bump that maximum score up to 10. Now, the final score will be an aggregate of all the different categories crunched down to a score of whatever it is out of 5. Simple. And for Destiny 2 New Light as well as Shadowkeep, because I'm including that in the review, I will be going over the story, gameplay, loot, progression, the graphics, sound design and music, and finally the monetization scheme of the game. Oh, and before I forget, this system is designed to be a bit brutal. A 1 indicates that the game or the category is of the quality of Fallout 76. It's quintessentially a minimum viable product. A 3 can be said that, well, it just works. It's not great, it's not bad, but it doesn't really need to be said much of anything else besides that. And a 5 is absolute perfection. Nothing can actually improve upon this category or this game overall. And speaking of perfection, or the lack thereof, Destiny 2 story. Yeah, it exists, kinda, outside the game, like Warframe's new player experience. But to be honest, Destiny's story is a lot like Monster Hunter's story. It exists only to get you into gameplay, but where Monster Hunter's story keeps with you while you go run off, kill ginormous monsters, Destiny's story just kicks you off a ledge and says, have fun. And to show what I mean, the new tutorial quest that you get whenever you make a new character starts you off pretty well. You wake up in the middle of a junkyard not really knowing who you were or what anything's happening, and you're being talked to by this floaty little drone thing, and you go race off and try to find a ship, and it's a nice beginning quest. And after you get done with that and get your full loadout of 750 armor, you get taken to the main hub, and there the tutorial shows you around all the different places that you need to know about, and that's pretty well it. The same format is true for Shadowkeep as well. You have a good opening story that has a twist, which apparently this is what Destiny always does. Then you get a bunch of fluff, and you have to work your way through hours of extra content just to progress the storyline, and then you realize, oh, this is the last quest. So I really can't recommend anyone coming to Destiny for the story, because it really doesn't exist inside the game. If you want to read up the lore, it apparently has fantastic lore. I haven't had that much time to really delve into it. So with that, I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 for this category. Now on to the reason why you would come to Destiny 2. The gameplay, which I have to say feels really good. It's the standard team-based shooter setup with you going into a dungeon. In this game, they're called strikes, or they have arena-based kill boxes that you get to really have fun in. The story in these missions are really arbitrary, since you're only going into these missions for one thing, and that's to kill every non-player character you see. It's a very basic setup, and there isn't much to content variety, to be honest, but it's the moment-to-moment gameplay that really allows you to keep replaying those simple mission types. And the gunplay really does remind me of back whenever I played Halo, and that's what a looter shooter really needs, is really good gunplay to sustain anyone for hundreds of hours. Unless if you're of course Borderlands, of where you have so much loot it doesn't really matter, you're just wondering what the next gun is going to do. But this isn't Borderlands, and this isn't Warframe. This is more of a spiritual successor to the Halo series, and that's also why I'm not really comparing it too much. I am going to recognize that a lot of the people in the Destiny community that I've talked to do have problems with the content in the game, because a lot of it is reused from the first game, since the moon was a playable area in Destiny 1, and a lot of the factions are just reused and rehashed. But as much as I understand that, I still have to say that, at least as of this recording, Destiny 2 is in a far better place content-wise than Warframe. We're still just hoping that this next update actually brings something actually worth killing. So with all that consideration, I'm giving this category an 8 out of 10, since there are repetitive issues with the content, but it has really good gunplay, which is essential for a looter shooter. Okay, now that we've talked about the shooting part of this game, let's talk about the other half, the loot. To sum up the structure of the loot system, it follows a Borderlands style loot drop, where you're getting mostly armor and weapons instead of resources, and the loot does feel good. The weapon models do feel unique and are fairly detailed, and they handle differently depending on what stats you roll on them, as well as what perks you put on them. Now, this will be for a little bit later, but you can even change some of that with how you mod it, but again, that will be later. The loot system is also generous. It doesn't starve you, though once you hit the soft cap for your power level, it will start to slow down until you have to start grinding out pinnacle gear, and that's another point of contention that is actively having feedback given to Bungie. So the loot system earns a 6 out of 10. It's a solid system, but I feel like it still needed more variety for the different types of weapons that you can possibly get, as well as missed opportunities for what they really could have implemented with the loot system with random perks. Now that brings us to the next category, which is the game's progression and how you can build up the character. And to be honest, this system is a little convoluted, so I won't be going too much into detail into how this system works, but the gist of it is that you now have mods that you can equip to your weapons or your armor that you get through completing activities, though your build will be focused around a certain exotic piece that has whatever effect that you want, and you build around that. While this system does seem to be a little bit more of a pain in the ass to get up and going, once you do get your exotics that you want, you can come up with a number of different viable in-game builds that are pretty fun. However, the system, as good as it is being held back from being a great system because of clarity issues, as well as being heavily influenced by RNG, which does work against it just slightly. So the progression system gets a 3 out of 5. Now on to the graphics and sound design / music. Okay, I'm assuming that you've been watching this, so you pretty well know what the game looks like. And I feel like a 4 out of 5 is a fair score for how good the game does look. It's not overly impressively fantastical, but it is above average. Definitely for how some games look nowadays. And for the sound, well, it works. It doesn't really move me that much, and the music is never going to be as good as the Warthog run in Halo 3. Let's just be honest there. So it gets a 3 out of 5. Now, this really comes down to one of the most important aspects of any game in 2019, and that is microtransactions and how they're making money off the game. Their system is pretty middle of the road. It's standard cosmetic only with a boost to a 900 power level, which isn't really necessary. Overall, it isn't oppressive like some, and Shadowkeep with the season pass is only $35 if you don't get the special edition, which I can never really recommend getting a special edition anyways. It's a middle of the road 3. So my conclusions on the game, it is a 3.2 with the caveat that if you really love gunplay in your looter shooters, then you absolutely have to play Destiny 2. Because everything else about the game isn't necessarily bad, but it doesn't really help or stand out in any way really either. So that really does wrap up this review. If you've made it this far, thank you. And please consider sharing the video, liking it, definitely if you found it interesting or informative. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, since I am going to be working on some more reviews, as well as some more topic videos. So yeah, see you in the next video then.